At InDigital, we know the public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only I3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
Here in Greenville County, we have 8 different places where a 911 call can be answered.
It is the largest county in South Carolina. It's a challenge.
The type of information that a telecommunicator gets from Radius Plus is location-based technology. You can see where the caller is, if they have a medical issue, if they speak a different language. They're immediately able to text to that caller in their native language. It reduces response times because it immediately gets first responders where they need to be.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, Rapid Deploy, as well as Carbyne, but this is going to be a Carbyne exclusive episode. As always, a big thank you to patrons. I wouldn't be able to do everything that I do if it wasn't for all of you, and especially those of you who are watching, listening, sharing, and supporting. So thank you so very much. We've got a lot of stuff that is going on. We've got a big episode today, and I'm excited. This one's going to be a little different. We've got several people who are going to be on with me here in just a moment, but I do want to let everyone know, especially those that are patrons, there is new content that's coming up. I have a new Singing Badly in My Car that I'm working on right now, and it is hilarious. It's an excellent one. But also audio versions of the DRT, the Dispatchers Roundtable, is going to be going out. We got episode 24 that by the time this episode comes out has already actually been out. And that episode was with Leah Hornacek as well as Edie DeVilbus. And it was round 24 of the Dispatchers Roundtable, so make sure to check that out. Audio versions of the DRT as well as Open Mic Live go out to patrons. Patrons only, actually. That's a perk that they get. So the video is out there for everyone, but audio versions that people listen to a lot more, it seems, actually is they're going to be out there. Those audio versions for patrons. So if you are looking to become a patron, you can also check us out. And that is patreon.com/WTT podcast. There's swag and discounts to the store, as well as t-shirts and a bunch of other stuff. So make sure to check that out there. All right, we are going to get into this, and I'm going to be bringing my guests up on the screen. And those for listening in audio, I'm going to be bringing them in one by one, just getting some background, and then we're going to jump into what we're going to be talking about today. Again, this is a Carbyne exclusive episode, so we're going to be talking about the power of video to 911 and several other things. So we were already talking right before we got started, and I'm excited to hear more about this and to have all of you listen to this as well to learn more about 911, the dispatchers and call takers that deal with each and every one of these calls that are coming in, but especially now more in this next generation of 911, as 911 is finally catching up to everything that is going on, whether it be video to 911, pictures, or location accuracy. There's so much that is happening, and it makes me a little bit jealous because I'm not in dispatch anymore, so I don't get to use all of this awesome stuff that is coming out, that the dispatchers and call takers are able to use. So my first guest is going to be Julia Patterson, and she's the 911 coordinator out at Stark County 911 Administration. Hello.
Hi there.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. It is excellent to have you on. And for those who are watching and listening, if we can just get a quick background on you in 911 and everything, where you come from and what it is that you do there.
Well, I started here in October of 2010, and I came in as an IT tech. I had no 911 background, so I was just kind of thrown into this, and I started learning little things here and there. And over the years, I've learned a lot. And the past 2 years, or 2 years ago, I was promoted to the Stark County 911 coordinator. So basically, I do more than administrative work on the background. I am not a dispatcher, but I can see. I've seen what they've done, what they have gone through, what they do. They do a lot. They really do. I am impressed with what they have to go through.
What was it that you did before this?
I was an IT tech. I was a PC tech, help desk person for the Stark County IT.
So what was that? What was that change like coming into this and then learning a lot more about dispatch and some of the calls that they take?
For me, I was excited. I was getting away from, the everyday working on PCs, working with people on their software, and coming into here, learning something new. I was truly excited about it, and I'm always up for learning something new. So I was happy.
That is excellent. I'll tell this story really quick. I had, when I was working within digital still, I was a communications director, and we had a group of college students that came in, and they were doing a tour of the building, and they wanted me to run the tour, of course. And because I come from 911 as well, I was a dispatcher for 13 years, and I also have the technical background, and that we brought them back into our training room. And I remember they told me, we want you to be as real with them as possible, because if they're going to be getting into the tech side in 911, but also maybe programming or software development or anything like that for 911, we want you to be real with them so that they know what they're getting into. I said, are you sure you really want me to be real with them? Because I might tell them some stories that's going to scare the shit out of them. And they're like, no, just go ahead and do it. Just go ahead. And so I'm telling them these crazy stories, and they're just staring. And I said, just remember, if you are creating some sort of software or something that has to do with the network, you need to make sure that you're 100%, 110% actually sure on what it is that you're doing. Because if you miss a period or a slash or something that screws up, that phone call is not going to get where it's supposed to go, and someone might die. And and the person who's there with them, the professor, the jaw just dropped. And then you could hear a pin drop. And then I started telling them some funny stories, and they were laughing, and they felt a lot better. I said, I just want you to know what you're getting into, because this is very important what you do, and it matters. Yep. And they're all like, all right, yeah. Oh, but it was hilarious.
Well, yeah, actually, I'm sorry. Actually, this change in my position really, I have to say, opened up my eyes to what 911 is and how it truly affects the people. And because I never looked at it, 911 in that way. To me, it was just call 911, tell them what's going on, where your address is at, where you're at, and hang up. But now working in this field, I realize how important 911 is for everybody. The new technology that's coming in, making sure that our dispatchers have what they need to help them to be able to locate people, whatever it is that they need. Stark County 911, I am trying to get those products to them. So I have to say I love my job.
That is
Sometimes I
perfect.
don't like it, but I love it.
I think we're all like that, right?
Yeah.
That is excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here, and I'm looking forward to getting to know more about you and everything that we're going to be talking about here as well. So the next guest here is going to be Terry Curry, and he's a supervisor over at Stark County Sheriff's Office. Hello, hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
All right, excellent. So Terry, you the same. A little bit of background on you, and as well as 911. Where do you come from?
I come from the patrol side at the sheriff's
Mhm.
office, actually from 1991. So I
Nice.
finished up 30 years patrol side, patrol supervision, other aspects of the sheriff's office that I've worked at. And then after that 30 years, I came on to assist at the communications center. The sheriff's office is the primary PSAP for Stark County.
Mm-hmm.
I came in to assist the communications director at the time, who will pop up here shortly, James Wood. And then, he helped me along the way, and then he moved on to bigger and better things. And I kind of came in this on a managerial aspect, and I always tried to protect my dispatchers when I was on the patrol side. I knew they had a tough job, but I did not realize how tough it was, the things that they're going through every day, until I actually had to sit down here 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and helping assist them and everything that they have to do. It's amazing what goes on the centers across the country every day. And then I get to be a part of watching these people work. And it's pretty amazing on what they do.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I've had a lot when I was in dispatch. I remember one time specifically, we had a real bad storm go through, and we had trees and wires down everywhere. And I had a couple officers that came up to dispatch, and they wanted to help us out. And it was only about an hour that they were in there, and they're like, "Hell no! Like, we're gonna go back out to the road." Like I don't know how you guys are doing this, and we're just moving like we're an octopus, and we've got 8 arms and everything, just doing everything. So it was a big eye opener for them coming in to see what it is that we're doing, especially when there's only 3 of us running the entire county, and but they were ready to go. And was it that eye opening for you as well, as you're getting in there and just really learning more about your dispatchers and such and call takers?
I hate to say that. When I was a supervisor, I always knew that they had a tough job, and I always pushed it on the patrol officers. You have to do things on your own. You cannot rely on them. You have the ability. And from 1991, I started, there were no cell phones. And I always talk about when we first started getting cellular phones in, we got little maps of our county that showed you where your range was with that phone. And if you went outside of that, then you went into roaming, and you're getting charged for all this. So I started in the career with pencil and paper or pen, relying on written information. You're talking about driver's identification, color, hair, eyes, height, weight, and you had to compare that to the person that you had stopped. But now, we're right on MDTs. We're going right into our applications that we have, and there's their driver's license photo. So the brother can no longer use his brother's information because you've got the picture. We've always had those as officers, where you find out that somebody used their sister's name, their brother's name. But that technology that came in through my career into what we're moving into now in these centers, and the capability that's there. I send my dispatchers out for ride-alongs with the patrol officers, but I can't get the patrol officers to come in and do a sit-along with the communication people that I have down here. But that's what we need to do, so they get the idea. One thing that we really push in our office is we are dispatching for multiple agencies, but they tend to think that we're only dispatching for them. So they're not getting that response back. When they're not getting it right back, or they tell an officer to stand by because he's just looking for contact information, and they get upset because you told him to stand by. We're dealing with 3 medical runs at the same time in another police agency with something critical going that they do not hear over their radio in their individual unit. but the aspect of what's going on in those centers at that any given time, that those patrol officers, the paramedics, the other officers, the other agencies, they don't know what's going on in there because they're isolated to that call that they're on. When they come down here, because we have fire captains and battalion chiefs that come down from the agencies, and we did that through their chiefs for them to sit in here to see what it's actually like on that end. And that really, really helped out those battalions and those captains to know that there are things going on, and they take it back to their paramedics and their firemen to say, hey, they're doing a lot of things back there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, it's when I first started doing this podcast, I think I had maybe 5 or so episodes in. This is probably going to be episode 409. But thinking back to the beginning, there was a deputy who had sent me a message, and he goes, "Man, I'm only a few episodes into the podcast, and I've learned more in just these few episodes than the whole 20 years that I've been doing this as a job and working with all of you." He says, "Now I know that when you tell me to go to lean in Michigan, is it our NCIC? When you tell us to go to stand by or go to the next channel and stand by, go to lean and stand by, you're not just telling me that. There's actually other stuff that's going on. You're not just telling me to go and you're letting me go." I'm like, yeah, why would we do that? Like, no, there is a lot of other things going on. It's just like when someone calls in and we go to put them on hold and they get upset, I have to tell them, your emergency isn't the only emergency that's going on. 911 doesn't stop for anything. It continues. So yeah, it was an eye-opener for him as well to learn so much more, but just through us having a conversation. So it was really good. So thank you as well for being on, and I'm looking forward to hearing more. We were kind of talking about some of the stories here in the beginning, but I'm looking forward to having you share these with all of those who are watching and listening as well. The next person that I have coming on here is going to be Jamie Wood, and 911 director out of Canton City Police. Hello.
Hey, good afternoon.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Welcome to the episode. Glad to have you
Thank
here, and you as well. A quick overview of your 911 background, please.
Sure. This is my 15th year being involved in 911. I started off as a dispatcher, and I'm kind of the oddball in the group here because I've worked at all 3 of the centers that you have on in a supervision role at all of them, and have continued to grow. When Terry came on, I knew it was time to move because, when there's somebody smarter than you, you just move on. So Terry was there, and it was in good hands. So, but no, I've been blessed to be able to be a part of all of our agencies and the major agencies in Stark County that you're going to have on. But I started off in a single seat dispatch center at one of our townships here, dispatching, and being in a single seat center was pretty eye-opening. We weren't near as busy as these other centers, and they have now moved on to join the Red Center, which you'll have on in a little bit. But being in that seat by yourself when something bad happens is, terrifying because, now in the centers that we have 4 or 5, people, 3 to 5, somewhere around in there. You can always look for help, but when you're on your own, it's you, and you do your best and hope it all works out. But yeah, I'm glad to be here. I've enjoyed every aspect of 911 and being a part of it.
When you started out, were those 8 or 12 hours that you worked?
They were 8 hours at the beginning. So, but
the reason I ask is because when I first started out in dispatching back in 2001, I started out in Central Florida. It was for a small police department, and it was just me as well. It was one dispatcher on 8-hour shifts, and we switched shifts every 2 weeks. So it was a 6A to 2P, 2P to 10P, and then 10P to 6A. Man, I know the feeling when things would go crazy. Oh yeah. Especially because when when we would get to that midnight shift, we worked that for a month. So you're used to it. You're used to that 10P to 6A, and then you go straight to 6A to 2P and just mind blown. Like, I don't know what to do. My body doesn't know where to go. What's going on? But it was an interesting experience, especially out there in Florida, because whenever there would be some orange groves that would catch fire, then it would get super crazy, and people are just calling and calling and calling, and I'm the only one there freaking out. But it was a lot of fun and a lot of good practice for when I moved back home to Southwest Michigan. I ended up working at a central dispatch, which the call volume was way higher. There were more of us working at the same time, but I think working by myself actually prepared me for a lot more of that call volume and different calls that were going to be coming in.
I agree with that.
Well, thank you so much for being on here, and I look forward to hearing more about your career and some of these stories we're going to be getting into. The next guest coming up here is going to be Cody Post, 911 Executive Director with the Red Center, a regional emergency dispatch. So here we go. Cody, welcome.
Hey, Ricardo, how are you?
Hey, man, what is going on? I am doing good. I hope you're doing well as yourself.
Doing okay.
All
so
right.
I'm like a long-time listener, second-time caller. What are the...
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, because we've done a couple things before, yeah. This is good, man. Welcome back. For those who are watching and listening, some background, please, on yourself and where you come from.
So I started in 911 in the mid-2000s in a two-seat dispatch center. It was 2 seats for all of the first 2 weeks I worked there, and then it became a joint operation with a neighboring police department. So I went through the whole merger process. 2 weeks on the job, that was an interesting experience. Worked there for 5 years, and then it got merged into a consolidated regional center where we picked up another city. Was there for 2 years as a line supervisor before moving to a different county and becoming the operations supervisor for a 2-county regional operation. And then I applied for this job on a whim before I went to APCO National in Baltimore. And so I'm the newest kid on the block here in Stark County. My agency is responsible for 16 other, covers 16 agencies in Stark County. I'm just happy to be here, happy to be lucky enough to work with these fantastic people that you already introduced. Julia, I don't think gives herself enough credit. In the last 6 months, she's given us every piece of 911 technology you could beg, plead, or ask for as a 911 director. It's been pretty spectacular in my opinion. Also, some people may recognize me. I presented at APCO National in Texas in July, and I was also a speaker at NENA National, just down the street from us in Columbus, Ohio. So that's a little bit about me and what I've been doing here in 911.
Excellent, man. Welcome. And before I bring our last guest in on here, I have to ask you really quick. What was one of the main motivation to, I guess, move up, into the spot that you have? I mean, you said that you applied for this position also on a whim. I mean, what was that like for them to say, "Hey, you got it"? Like, oh, really? Like, I just did it.
The process was pretty long to get this job. So, and just about every step of the way, I was like, yep, that was the last time they're ever going to talk to me again. The initial reason I wanted to become a supervisor in 911 really revolved around having supervisors that, and I'm sorry to them if you're watching this, because we've all talked about this, but now I have to say it out loud, is I just thought I could do better than they could. And that honestly was a really naive attitude to have, because I didn't have a clue what I was doing or what I was about to get myself into. And then slowly climbing this ladder, it's been an opportunity to learn things that I didn't know. And learn that when you're sitting behind the dispatch desk and you're bad-mouthing your boss as they walk by because they get to go home at 5 o'clock or they don't have to deal with the crazy callers that you have to deal with, there's a whole lot of the business that they deal with that you don't really have any idea that goes on behind their office door that they deal with on a daily basis. So initially, I got in the business to do better than the people that I worked for. When I got to this role over the years, very sometimes slowly, sometimes like drinking through a fire hose, I've learned that there's a whole lot more to it, and there's a lot you don't know that you don't know to sit in the chair.
It can be humbling, right?
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
More ways than you can ever imagine.
Yeah, it seems to happen that way, right? You come in and it was like me as well. When I left the one-seater small police department, moved back home to Southwest Michigan, and I went in and I had my training, of course, but my training wasn't as long as everyone else because I already had 3.5 years experience under my belt. But me going in thinking, yeah, I got this. No, it was humbling as well because the call volume was crazy. There was way more monitors, and I'm watching people on my first day as I'm walking in, and they're just handling it like nothing and eating at the same time. And I'm thinking, am I going to be able to do this? Like I've just was served a nice slice of humble pie there.
I
But
think I think one of the leaders in our industry that's been around for a little bit, Chris Carver, he once drew up a picture on a legal pad for me, and I have it at home. It's laminated, and it talks about how dispatchers are used to going from like emergency or incident right into decision making, right into solving the problem. And as leaders, it's really like problem, situation. You need to take time and come up with your answer, to think about it, because if it doesn't require an immediate answer, don't give an immediate answer, because you just get yourself in trouble when you do that.
yeah, exactly. So my last guest I'm going to be pulling up here is Brett Wren, and he is the head of customer success over at Carbyne.
Hey, Ricardo. Good afternoon.
Hello. What is going on, man?
Not much, man. Good to be back.
Yeah.
Good to see you again.
Welcome back. And for those who are here or watching and listening, who might not remember, a brief history of your 911 background, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. Started in 911 back in 2007 in a PSAP in North Carolina, where I progressed through the ranks from call taker and dispatcher up to shift supervisor, and then into a 911 director role where I served there before I joined Carbyne. And so currently leading the customer success efforts here at Carbyne as as you mentioned, the head of customer success, but ultimately about 15 years worth of public safety experience, and still continuing to lead innovation, which is a big piece for us. So.
Excellent. And then also for those who are watching and listening, just a little background on Carbyne as well, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So Carbyne it came to the U.S. to lead the industry and through innovation of an ecosystem that is built in the cloud, is cloud native, really leading the way in that type of technology. So our services also include technology sources for video, chat, and location. So, but all of it, again, being in a native cloud and an ecosystem that lives there, and creates a portable aspect for the PSAPs with easy implementation.
Excellent. So I want to jump in and get started on some of these stories that we were talking about here in the beginning. We got some stories from Terry, but as well as Cody. But what I want to do first, though, is I want to go to Cody really quick, and I just want to kind of jump in with, what was the reason really for wanting to implement a lot of this new technology that is coming in there at the center.
I kind of drive Julia nuts with this. But we're in the emergency services business, and litigation has been a thing in our industry, especially in the number of recent years. Anyone that's been paying attention from the Denise Amber Lee case, all the way through to the case in the Kyle Plush case in Cincinnati, and a lot of it revolves around they're human errors, right? But a lot of times didn't have technology that would have helped them. They were relying on phase 2 location information, which we all know is really great if they're standing in the middle of a field with nothing around them, where they can have good signal strength, good GPS locations. But if they're in a city complex or downtown metroplex, location is nearly impossible to be really accurate. So I strive to ask for technology for two things. Number one, every piece of technology we put in here to help us find a caller is is making us more reliable, really, than the caller. And then secondly, it's really about reducing workload on the dispatchers. If you got into this business 25 years ago, 30 years ago, you may have started with a typewriter. Now the technology is all over the place. We have 6 screens. Depending where you are and what you're doing, you could be doing part of the ticket process for the officer, processing ticket processes. My center, we're a little more isolated than both Jamie and Terry's folks, and so we're not involved in that, but we still have warrants and protection orders, and every little thing that the dispatchers do that we can either automate, number one, or eliminate from the dispatch center altogether allows them to focus on our callers, our individual emergencies, what's going on, and in some aspects and in some centers, the radio traffic that's going on. In a vertical operation where you're the call taker and the person on the radio, it's super tough to listen to the caller and listen to your radio and watch everything else that's going on. So if we can take some of that stuff away or combine it into applications that do things automatically, that's just going to make us more effective and more efficient across the board.
Now, you mentioned those 2 specific incidents, but were there any incidents that you dealt with there at the center that made you think, like, we need to do something? We need to do something more about this? Or was it just simply those 2 more of a high-profile cases that happened that kind of pushed it forward as well?
Honestly, I think there's an incident every day where, man, if we just had rapid SOS, man, if we just had Carbyne and I could see where this person was and see what was going on. You could pick any of the major platforms that are pushing out extra capabilities to dispatchers today, and you almost could find a call in my center, and I know this is probably true for Jamie and Terry both. There's a call every day where a piece of technology would have helped us find the person faster. We just had a suicidal person recently that, had we been able to use something like rapid SOS with that person or utilize Carbyne, the situation really wouldn't allow us to. We could have found that person faster. So, there's not one call in my head in my center that sticks out, because it's almost every day that we could use these tools.
Now, when and this is for any of you here, but really that ties into Julie as well. When you're looking at technology and all, I guess, what is it that goes into the process of implementing something like this?
Well, first of all, we want to make sure that we give the dispatchers what they want. So I work with the supervisors of the centers, and from there we have to go out and talk to certain vendors to find out what they can offer us and what would be the best product. And then, unfortunately, at that point, it goes, we got to do get different quotes from those vendors and push it. After that, find out who's better pricing, and then sometimes we pay the lowest. Sometimes we'll pay something that's a little bit better or higher, I should say. Because what I do is I talk to these guys and ask them what they prefer, because sometimes the lowest is not the best,
Right.
the cost of it. And then you got your red tape with the government, so it takes things slowly. And that's why Cody, gets upset with me, but, he keeps pushing, but I'm like, you're working with the local government now.
What I like about that in the beginning is the fact that you mentioned that you talk to the users, those who are going to be using this, what it is that they're looking for, what they want, of course, because those are the ones who are going to be using it. It's not just the supervisors. It's not just the deputy director or the director. And that was one of the things that happened at my old center as well, when we were looking at a new CAD system. They came and actually talked to us and asked us a bunch of stuff and what we were looking for, what we wanted. We had an old AS400 at the time. I don't know if anybody remembers that one, but it was all basically command line stuff. And so we wanted to make sure that the next one had the command line still in there, because for us who had started using that, memorization was a big thing. So all of those codes, we had all of those memorized and made it a lot faster. So that, I think, is one of the best things there. And I hope there are other centers that do this as well. Not just, I'm sure there are some out there that just bring something in. They're like, here's the new thing, and you're going to learn how to use it. But it's always good to be able to go to those that are the users, the ones that are going to be in there that are actually going to be using it, so that, you know, make sure everything works well there in the center.
If I can add to this as well.
Sure.
Especially with this product that we're discussing today, when it came to us, it was what an opportunity we have for our citizens and our community to be able to assist them better, faster. Because, you know, the statement is so true, seconds saves lives. And with the ability to know where somebody is quicker and more accurately, you know, sometimes things are a no-brainer. And I know when this came out, my statement was, well, we need this. We have to have it. The county needs to find the money to whatever it costs, because this is something no one else is offering in Ohio, in our area. And to be able to do this and help people better and faster was a no-brainer. So some of the products are, yeah, it'd be great to have it if, and some of the products like what we're talking about today with Carbyne was, this is a no-brainer. Where has this been all of our careers, all of our lives, to be able to have this information? And, you know, and as we'll get into with the stories, as soon as we were live with this, it worked immediately. You know, it wasn't a process that we had to wait weeks or anything like that to find out. This location service, once it was hooked up, all three of us immediately had positive results with it. You know, we host an event here in Canton, in the county, the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And every year we have over 100 and some thousand people come in for one weekend in August, that most of which are not from this area and don't know where they are. And this tool, you know, was utilized a couple times during then. It's not the front page story, but to that person, not knowing where they were and being able to help them, it was incredibly invaluable to them. Again, it's not the life-saving or that, but to get them whatever help they needed, it was there. So for those events, it was perfect as well. But again, it's a team effort here in Stark County. Like Julia said, she puts it out to us. We get together with our staffs, and, you know, the determination is made that way. She just doesn't say, here's this new software that your people are going to use. You know, is it going to work for you? And it has to work for all of us, you know,
right?
Rural, city, that type of stuff. And it has to make sense, and it does. And we work well together in that way.
That's excellent. The teamwork is a big thing, especially, you know, when you're looking at technology like this, you're working like a well-oiled machine. That's key. Now I want to go to Terry here really quick. So for those who are watching and listening to this right now, this is going to sound weird, but when I was working in dispatch, my favorite types of calls to take were domestics. Like I said, hear me out when I say favorite. The reason I say favorite is because those types of calls were the ones that I felt like I was using all of my resources, like everything that I was doing to help them out there. Those were the types of calls. You know, sometimes some calls or some, you know, officers or those who are in dispatch like to be on the radio, and their favorite types are maybe a chase or something like that, because everything is going, it's moving really fast. Again, they're figuring out perimeters and doing all this other stuff. So when I say this is my favorite type of call, that's what I mean. It's because of the resources that are put into it and everything that goes into a call like this. Sometimes talking to both parties on the line when they're separated, there's nothing physical that's happened, it's all verbal, and I'm talking with both of them, making sure they're staying separated until an officer gets there to help them out. So that's what I mean when I say this. Now, with that said, using technology like this would have helped even more. So back when I was in dispatch. So as I said in the beginning, I'm a little jealous sometimes with all this new technology coming out because I didn't get to use it. But Terry, for you earlier before we started recording this, actually, you had mentioned a domestic call. So there was a third party call in for a domestic, and there was a link sent out. Tell us this story. How did this all play out?
Yeah, it started early. If I remember right, it was probably about less than a week or 2 weeks after we had actually installed the system.
Mm-hmm.
And it was on our day shift that we had a third-party call from a friend of a domestic violence victim.
Mm-hmm.
And she indicated that her friend was in trouble and that she needed some help, but she was unable to make contact with us. Our dispatcher was able to obtain this victim's phone number because this victim was actually communicating with her friend. Little detail, she was actually in the bedroom with the perpetrator. He was sleeping. She was actually in the bed with him, but she had been abused to the point where medical attention was needed towards the conclusion of the call. Our dispatcher had told the original caller, let your friend know that we're going to send her a link,
mm-hmm.
and to answer that link. And she did. And then our dispatcher started from there with the general questions. Are you okay? What is going on? Are you injured? We want to provide you help. And she was responding back with the dispatcher at that time. At the same time, we're moving resources to that location to the point where we had officers outside of this residence. And this is during the day. They positioned and they they continue the contact with her, and we let her know that officers are right outside her house. The location services, we knew what corner of the house that she was in. So plans were set with the responding units that they knew where she was at, and they were able to assess with all this information how they might approach this. We indicated her where we are outside. Her response back was, give me 1 minute. And at the end of that 1 minute, she got up and she ran out of that room, out of the house to the front to where the officers were at. The officers had made entry into the residence, conducted the investigation, arrest was made. She was saved from who knows what. And that was right then at that moment. And, Jamie was here at that time because we were both working together when this first was implemented. And we knew right then that, just that, they always say it only takes one incident. And this was that one incident for us that we knew that the technology that we were using was going to be pivotal for us in the future for what and that led us into multiple other incidents using the technology.
Wow. So for those who are watching and listening, if you can just kind of elaborate a little bit on this link that was sent out that the person ended up clicking on. So does this start like a chat session? I'm assuming because, the suspect is there. You don't want to have them on the phone because they don't want them to hear them. So they're typing instead and, maybe able to get location off of that. Is that what you're saying? Like when they send a link?
Yeah, they're actually sending the link through SMS, and it's going to them, and there's no notification. There's no alerts going off on the phone. And that link will indicate that you need to, this is emergency services, press this link. And once they press that link, it will give access into that device for the location, permissions for video. The person on the receiving end would have to give that permission, but it immediately opens up a chat avenue for that person. And once again, it's quiet and silent.
Wow. So all of this is going on, and I'm guessing the suspect didn't even know until they're already there.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
That is excellent right there. Definitely a good save. Now I know you've got a couple other stories here, but I want to jump over to either Jamie or Cody for any stories that you have here. Cody, I know we were talking at the beginning of this. You were talking about a fight that happened at a music festival, right? Hey, you're on mute.
Welcome to 2020, folks.
There you go. I know, right?
So one of our jurisdictions has a it's called Clays Park. It's a big campground. They also it's kind of a unique environment. They have a very large stage to hold music venues. They have camping in every level from primitive to in a water park. It creates this really unique dynamic. And right as we came out of COVID lockdown, the first major music event in the state of Ohio in June was Luke Combs on Thursday night at this festival, and the attendance record at the event was set years and years ago of about 18,000 people. They'd never really had anything more than that. Well, that night, 28,000 people came to see Luke Combs. If you have a cell phone, it doesn't work. It will call 911, but that's kind of about it. Text messages kind of work. Video is a little spotty. So the other challenge is they take all these open land and they turn it into camping spots, and you fill it with 28,000 really intoxicated country music fans, and they have no idea where they are. And we had a fight really early in the morning on one of the nights of the 4-day festival, and intoxicated folks have no idea where they are, and we were able to use Carbyne to locate where they were in a very wooded area in what ended up being a huge 400-person party in the middle of the woods. And Carbyne kind of allowed us to be able to find that person and get responders to them really quickly.
Wow. Yeah, I can't even imagine being okay. So let me ask you this as well. Did you have like a command center and everything set up out at this festival?
Yeah. So for the festival, they actually put two of them together. One specifically handles fire and EMS response inside the event, and then the other one is tied to the police department, and they're literally across the driveway from each other. And some people are like, well, why do you separate them? Well, because they arrest a lot of underage drunk kids, and that is its own issue. And then fire and EMS is running, sometimes 30, 40, 50 responses during that environment, and having all those resources together would just not work. So with Julia's help and her office and our county CAD administrator helping us out, we were able to put Carbyne out on a laptop out in the field, and our police dispatcher was actually able to use Carbyne to connect with the caller. And then my dispatch center back here, after a certain time of night when our police dispatch location closes, they could use Carbyne in the center and then relay to the officers out on the event grounds themselves.
That is excellent right there. See that that's just one more example with the new technology that's here already that folks are able to utilize right out there in a command center for this entire festival. You can keep track of everything that's going on, and like you said, you had this fight that was going on. You said there was about 400 people out there.
Yeah, the guy that had the party, ironically, was named Cody. So the joke for the rest of the weekend was Cody's party got a little out of hand. But they had this huge party, and we were there a lot, but that was really our first interaction with them. And I'll be honest, we wouldn't have been able to successfully handle that event if it wasn't for the technology that Julia gave us. She really made sure we had what we needed. Her partner was in our office the days before and of that event, making sure we had what we needed. Terry and the guy that sits right behind him that you can't see,
back there,
hiding in the shadows.
You can see him waving.
Terry and Donnie, who sits behind him, sent a bunch of technology out. We basically pack muled 3 dispatch workstations into this campground and put them in 2 campers that were set up to be command posts. So I'll be frankly honest, the Red Center would not have been as successful without Julia, Terry, and the sheriff's office's help to have all the resources we needed out there at that time.
That's amazing, man. That is awesome. I want to go back here to Jamie really quick. Now, Terry was talking about this this domestic and how the both of you were there during this time. So I want to get your take on this, Jamie. What was that like for you then, seeing this technology be so successful in a situation like the one that you were all talking about?
It was very eye-opening to see it actually work. Again, Terry comes from the officer side of things, and his tactical side comes out in the dispatch side as well. So he had a concern of, are we putting this person more at risk with it? And I completely understood and understand that every time we do it, we are putting them at risk. But, this worked out. It was textbook. I mean, it really was textbook. And there's another situation that I think he'll talk about even further, where when I was here at the city and we had to work together with our SWAT team coming out to assist them in these events, how well that worked and how much of a risk it was, but the risk worked that time. And, sometimes taking that chance to save a life and doing these things is well worth those risks, to be able to see things. And the downside of that is, what is a dispatcher seeing? What effect does that have on them long term, which we had to have long discussions about with the video aspect of things. How is this going to affect that individual in a negative way? Yes, they hear it, but it's a whole different thing when you actually see it. Terry can attest to this from both sides. He's been on those scenes. He's seen the terrible things that happen. We just hear about it. Well, now we're seeing it. So taking care of our people on the back end of this working is important. I know I got a little off track there, but I feel it ties in together with that.
Yeah, no, it's really good to be able to talk about that as well, because that is one of the big things that I've been talking about with a lot of people when it comes to video and 911 and all, because there is that mental health aspect of it's one thing for us to be taking these calls, hearing everything and piecing it together in our heads, and sometimes it's way worse than what it actually is out there, right? But we're just going off of what we're hearing, whether it be the caller or things that are going on in the background. In whatever environment that they're in, but now you are going to see it. So then what goes into the self-care or taking care of your dispatchers and call takers to make sure that they're getting the help that they need now that they're able to see stuff? But also when we're talking about video to 911, is there a way for those who are maybe supervisors, for it to be sent over to a supervisor to see versus those that are right on the line? Or can you send that video to an officer that's out on the road that's heading that way? There's other aspects of this. I guess I can ask, how does it work for you? Do you have that option, or does it just go straight to dispatch and then they see whatever it is that's going on?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in and say, not yet. Right now, we are the only ones that can see it. We are, I think, because of our unique setup here, we hopefully will be testing some new features that will allow us to send it out to first responders. Terry, Jamie, and I are all kind of brainstorming ways, once we get that capability, to really put it to test and really just use it a lot and make a bunch of test calls and kind of experiment with our firefighters doing training and our police officers doing training, so we can see how it works and how it'll fit into their workflow, so we can make policies and procedures. And I defer to those guys, but I think that's where we are at the moment.
Hey, Ricardo, in one aspect of that, are the dispatchers, they have an option of seeing the video.
Mm-hmm.
However, it will record in the background. So part of that technology is, yes, we can ask them to send video. That telecommunicator does not have to view that, but they can. It will be recorded in the background.
That's awesome.
But
good to have that,
we also know that. Yeah, we also know that our dispatchers are humans as well, and they thrive on this type of stuff. So chances of them minimizing it and hiding in the background, I know at least at our center here are going to be, minimal, because they want to see that just as any other person would. They want to be a part of that. Just like when you drive by a car accident, everybody rubbernecks to see what happened, what went on. Now
Right.
we're putting that car accident right front and center for them, and they're going to be like, yep, I got to see that, because we all know they want to look after the fact and see what happened as well, or try and find out as best as possible.
Well, so here's a quick question. This is one that I've asked a lot of people, and since we're talking about this right here at the moment, before we get to the next story, I do want to ask, because we battle with the fact that there's rarely closure in what it is that we're dealing with. Do you think that this will help in a way, maybe just a little
Yes,
bit on that closure aspect, being able to actually see what it is that's going on?
I do. 100% I do. I think it'll help somewhat. Yeah.
Well, I know as a patrol officer, I would always, after we had something that took place and I had photos on our camera, I'd come in, if it was a bad crash or something, like my dispatchers always wanted to see it. And I thought it was good for them to actually see that, to see what was taking place. Of course, it wasn't anything, no crime scene sensitive information, but, they get a rollover crash or, major crash, fire, anything incident like that. They always I'd always come in and say, hey, this is what it looked like there. And it does give them a picture of what it was. They have in their mind what it looks like, but now being able to see that, they're able to put maybe they had a lot of questions about what occurred, and now they can actually see that. Now with the technology, they would be able to see. Now, on that aspect, we're not doing video on every call.
Mhm.
It's not going to be expected on every call, but when you get the major incidents where you can assess a scene, especially a fire scene, assess a major crash, we're not going to be requesting video for a minor rear end crash at a stoplight somewhere. But when they're really involved, what are these responders going to need? That battalion commander for the fire department may now have access to say, hey, we can scale back, or we can need to push more, especially with a structure fire. They would be able to see that if that caller is willing to provide that to the center.
Terry, I think you just hit a key point too. Is with the video technology it provides that discretion of the call taker. Versus we all used to think when we first heard it that it was just going to get pushed in. I remember my call takers being scared of text 911. But now seeing how that's all played out, and now here it is where everyone was worried about photos and videos and everything else, but now it provides them that decision making point. So I think you hit a big topic there.
Now, to segue actually a
Sorry.
little bit more here, it's okay. Back to Terry. Now, you had you got a couple stories here. Actually, one of a hostage situation, right?
Yes. Yeah. Almost 2 years ago, year and a half ago, we had a domestic incident that was taking place on the west side of our county. Actually played out over maybe a week's period, where a husband had threatened or was thoughts of suicide because of the domestic issues that were going on at the home. And we did have officers respond. They had made contact with him. There was a handgun involved. Crisis was involved. So we had that initial contact with this person. Steps were taken for him at that time. Protection orders were put in place for the mother and the child. And about a week later, he showed up at the residence, violating a protection order. The 15-year-old son had actually ran out of the house when Dad showed up. Dad forced his way in, and then ultimately was holding his soon-to-be ex-wife hostage inside the residence.
Oh, wow.
Building up to this, we were gathering a lot of information. Officers responding. The contacts led into the next level, where the regional response team was activated, housed out of Kansas City, with agents or officers from multiple jurisdictions that are part of that regional SWAT team. During that portion of this buildup, the decision was made to try to send the female the link to Carbyne. I was hesitant, as Jamie said earlier, I was hesitant from my tactical background that if she does, or this activates onto this phone, if she's in the presence of him, it's going to alert him. So we were talking about that 50-50 double-edged sword that took place. Ultimately, the decision was made that we were going to attempt to send this link. And when we did, we found out that she was still in possession of her phone. He did have her held and barricaded into a bedroom of the residence. She was able to surreptitiously or quietly hold that phone because she was on a bed, blanket, whatever she was doing. She was able to respond to our questions. And our dispatcher did an excellent job. Are you okay? Are you injured? Where are you at in the house? What is the current situation? And she was able to provide that information. And we lost the link at one time. And then we're like, oh no. But reestablished with her. Through the course of that contact with Carbyne, we knew the location in the house. We knew how the room was barricaded because of her description that she gave us. And we're able to forward that information to the regional team because we can join our Carbyne sessions with the other dispatch centers. So they're able to come into those, activate those from their centers, the same thing that we're looking at. And it got to the point where she was able to show us video of him smoking methamphetamine, yelling out the window, and also with the revolver that he was using in his hand in threatening manners towards the outside of the residence. And we were able to provide that information to the responding units that, yes, he actively has the gun. Now, when the team started arriving, they were able to see that themselves through their tactics and their optics, that they were able to see that he was in possession. But we were able to verify that it was a gun. It wasn't a cell phone. It wasn't his pipe that he was smoking the methamphetamine with. So we were able to provide that information and giving a little bit of a tactical awareness to that room where they were at and providing her the assistance and knowing that we were there and doing everything we could for her. And she was pleading, get me out of here. Get me out of here. And through the course of the incident that took place, she was able to get out of the room by herself and actually exited that residence as the team started moving on their tactical approach to the residence. And she was able to run away from there. Double-edged sword, but it's an amazing story of what was utilized during this incident that had taken place. And it was, and now you start thinking about prosecution of these cases, the records that are obtained, the video that's obtained. Now you have this suspect actively using what appeared to be a narcotic, actively in possession of a firearm, and using that firearm in a threatening manner. It never seen a trial. And the personal words coming from that victim in that house at the time that she was in fear for her life.
Jeez. Like, I don't even know how to respond to that. Like, that is excellent.
You'll have
the
chills
whole thing playing out. Yeah. So I guess let me ask this. I mean, how did that make you feel to be able to, have that much success with this and just see how everything was playing out? I mean, I can only imagine that for those that were there doing it all at the time, I mean, it's like you're watching a movie play out. It's like, is this real life? And it is. This is real life. This is what's going on, and you're working it and all. But also at the end, to have that satisfaction, that feeling of accomplishment that we did this, and we did this because of also the technology that we have, that we were able to get through this and do it well.
I've been on the other. I wanted to be there. I wanted to be at the address. That's the other end of it that I'd worked for years. And to have that information for the team, if I had that on multiple other incidents that took place throughout the county, it could be a game changer what's taking place. If you're lucky enough, everything fell into place for this.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But to have that information, even prior to arrival, if you even had video of a house, we're looking at satellite imaging, planning any type of operations. You're putting all these operations together if it's a planned event. But you start taking into an incident that's taking place where it's not planned and you're reacting to your training. And our number one goal all the time, everything we always wanted was information. And that goes for any call. The fire department wants information on the fire. The law enforcement side wants information. So with me sitting in the room, like I said, I wanted to be there, but that wasn't my role. But I knew that I could help and direct from here with what was going on there. So that added an aspect of somebody in the room to be able to say, this is what's taking place at this time. And then we isolated our dispatcher that was working that call. Everybody else picked up the slack, and we isolated that dispatcher to handling that call himself for the duration. So then that dispatcher started taking ownership of that incident that was taking place and wanted to see that outcome. So it was, everything came into place on this one. You cannot guarantee that all the time, but just having the information that we're going to be seeing in the future playing out on our small scale here in Stark County, 350,000 residents in Stark County versus you got 350,000 people living in one metropolitan location. But just what we have and what was brought on board, that's where we're going to the future. That's all I can say.
That's excellent. Now, going over to Cody here really quick. Now you had a video call, right? It had to do with an ATV crash. You're on mute again.
I'm muted Cody for the rest of this episode. We have a riding area in the southern part of the county. It's like a campground, and then across the street is this really large ATV wilderness area. And ironically, this year when it opened, we were having crashes constantly, calls. We were going there, sending the fire department there 2 or 3 times a weekend, sometimes more. And recently in this one instance, we got a report of a crash, and the gentleman was severely injured, had a head injury. He had hit a tree, and the callers really wanted to put the guy on the ATV and drive him to the campground entrance. And our dispatcher at the time, who was taking the call, is actually a paramedic, and with our EMD instructions and her experience, was saying, don't move the guy, don't move the guy. And she actually sent the video link to them because our CAD map was plotting the call location. The Carbyne confirmed the call location. They were actually closer to a street address that the fire department could get to. So while the fire department was responding to the street address that was just a couple 100 feet away from the crash versus 2.5 miles away from the main gate of this campground, she was able to see the video and see the head injury and the condition of the person, whether they were conscious or not, because it's in the middle of the night. And it's funny to go back and look at the video. They're holding a phone with a flashlight behind it because there's a big old shadow, and they're moving the video around so that the dispatcher can see how the person's injured. So it would have that accident happened roughly like 2.5 miles away from the main gate, and through the location information we got from the Carbyne video link and the video information, we were able to let the responding fire department know his condition and really get him really, really close to the accident versus having to traverse what is really rugged terrain to get back there.
Yeah, just another example there of how good it is to have technology like this, to be able to have that video to look at the wound of the person that's there in this crash, and to be able to relay that so that they know what they're getting into as they're getting over there. It's phenomenal. Now I want to move over to Jamie now. You've got a story as well.
Not long after launch of the program, we had an individual that called 911, claimed to have been kidnapped, had no idea where he was. We were able to send a link through Carbyne to the individual. Somehow had his phone, after whatever had happened to him, was being kept in a basement. And through Carbyne, we were able to send a video link. He was able to hold his phone to a basement, show residences around him. So not only did we have the location, but we could see where he was in that basement. Turned out it was a drug deal that had gone sideways But still, we were able to get the individual out safely and locate him when he had no idea where he was. Hopefully that came through.
No, it did. Yeah, no, it did. I was just shaking my head because that's again another good example of this technology, and to be able to find, this person when they don't know where they're at, drug deal gone wrong, they're in the basement, and that's probably one of the scariest things to happen, of course. But the person was in that situation, but you all were able to get the person's location, be able to even see where they were at, and even further from there. So kudos, very well done. Now, Terry, moving over to you, we've got a couple of stories from you. Yes, I want to start out with the kidnapping story actually that you had, and then there's a second one after that.
Well, I don't want to refer to it as a kidnapping. We'll look at it as two unruly female juveniles, 14 and 13 years old, but it was a kidnapping or a lost child to the mother who had called, and it was early in the morning that a mother had her daughter had a friend spend the night with her. The mother had the mother intuition that came in, and she went in to check on them in the bedroom and found out that they had actually left the house, but they had placed the pillows and stuffed animals and everything under the bed to make it look like they were there. That didn't work. She called her daughter. Her daughter was scared. She was in a vehicle with somebody that she really didn't know, but she was with her girlfriend. She was pretty emotional, the mom and the child. The child just wanted to come home. This girl had never done anything like this to her mother's knowledge. We were able to, our dispatcher was able to get a third-party call going between the mother and the daughter. And we let the daughter know that was in the car that we were going to send her a link. Now, she's in the back seat of the car. There's a driver up front. She really doesn't know who he is. They're cruising around the east side of the county. She just wants to go home. Our dispatcher sends the link out to the girl. She accepts the link, which gives us the location. We're not looking at video. We're looking at location now. That was our sole purpose, was location. And we were able to get that location on her and talk with this girl and the mother on the line too. And I think from the duration of the call was anywhere from 6 to 8 minutes from the time we received it to the time that we had actual officers with the vehicle, with the girls in it. The driver had actually fled from the car when the officers arrived. And we have an officer arriving, Sergeant Klein, and you can hear him in the background on the phone going, we have your daughter. And then the mother was just so relieved, that her daughter was found. Kidnapping, no, but we don't know where this could have gone because she felt like they were taking her and they were heading back to the house. But we knew from Carbyne that they were nowhere near her residence, that they were going away from the residence. So the girl had thought that she was heading home, and they were not. And the officers made contact with her. So, the ability to do that now with that technology and what that has done is kind of leads us into what I'll talk about next, if you're ready.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
So when we first implemented the Carbyne, is with any product that's out there, you think of ways that you might be able to utilize it other than what its intended purpose was. So we don't have to receive that 911 call in to activate the Carbyne. We can actually enter in the 10-digit number and send that link out to any phone that we want to. And we know that when our canines are out working, we know where their car is, but we don't know where they and their dog are at if they're out working a track on somebody, especially in a rural environment. We have a lot of rural area in Stark County, a lot of park trails, and then we go right into metropolitan. We will now ask those canine officers, we will send them a link to their phone. They accept that link. They can put the phone in their pocket, their vest. They could put it on their dog if they wanted to. But we are now able to track that location with the location services to that canine handler. Or if it's not the handler, when somebody gets there that's assisting them, we can have somebody that's assisting in that search. To accept that link, we know where they are. If you don't have a canine available, It could be the paramedics. If they're out searching an area for an injured person that they have a blanket area, we don't know where they are in this location. We can put first responder up if they accept that link, and we'll be able to track them now to know exactly where they are at. So that was our people thinking outside the box to say, hey, we can utilize this for other than its intended purpose.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's one of the things that, we had issues as well when I was in dispatch, and I'd be on the radios and we'd have a K9 officer out doing their thing, and, they would call for something and people would say, where are they at? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, they haven't called out another location. This is where the vehicle was. This is the last location that they said. And, when I was working, every time something like that happened, everything ended up being okay. We were able to find where they were at rather quickly, but not like that. Not to the point where, we had a real-time location where we can just track where it is that they're going at the same time. So that is amazing. Thinking outside of the box is really good.
I have one more thing on that, if I can.
Of course.
So we have 7 centers in Stark County. So 3 of us are representing in the 7. All 7 centers have the Carbyne capability. The way the canines work in Stark County, Kansas City has the most canines, but the satellite police departments will have 1 canine, the different PDs that are out there. But we know as we start developing this, that if any of these canine officers go anywhere to assist within Stark County, even the borders of Stark County, we are able to track them, and their individual center is able to track them once we really start going into the weeds with the technology. Not necessarily canines, but once again, back to any first responder that we need to know where they are at. And they have their phone on them. And we know all police officers and firemen are carrying their phone with them. So,
well, as we go into the wrap up of this episode, which has been amazing to have you all on here, learn some more about your background, but also how you've been using new technology for 911. I have one last question, and this question is, when it comes to others who are either watching or listening to this, they're thinking about or might be on the fence of implementing any new technology that's out there for 911. What do you say to that? What do you say to those who are on the fence about adding new technology to their 911 center? And Cody, we'll start with you.
Do it. I listen, as a director, and I think all of us can attest, anytime you put 911 behind some piece of technology, they must add like 6 zeros to the price tag just intrinsically. I wasn't in the county when they decided to buy this application. I kind of got it. They already had it when I was here. When I found out how much it cost for its usability for as many times as they used it, I think it was worth every penny, and it really was a lot less expensive than I anticipated. When it comes to 911 technology, we're almost in an environment today where you have to do it, because if something goes wrong and we get called to the witness stand and that defense attorney gets up and says, hey, here's this thing right here that can do this and would have been able to save this person, and why don't you have this? Why don't you use it? Why is it not an option for you? And listen, we all struggle with funding, and we all struggle with the ability to not change, not change necessarily, or like fight change. Nobody likes to change, but in this day and age, I don't really think we have any other choice.
Excellent. Jamie, what about you?
I feel that if it can save a life, it's worth every penny of whatever it takes. And just in this, short time we've spoken, we've shown you in a small area compared to large metropolitan areas how well this works and lives that have been saved in just a few stories. We haven't, but we have seen that it works and it saves lives. And ultimately, it's our job, as first responders, is to get that help out there to save a life, to make a difference. And with this added technology, it helps our people do a stressful job. It helps their job become easier. And being able to tell somebody where to go to get the help is just critical. And New technology, everyone hates, again, as everyone brings it up. When you tell a dispatcher they're going to have to learn something new, every one of them cringe because, again, they have 6 monitors, 8 monitors they're looking at already. Now, what are you adding for me? But once they found out the value of it, I know our folks immediately jumped on it, and I think everyone else in the county did the same. And we're like, wow, look what this can do, and look at what we can do to help. So it's been amazing.
Awesome. Now, Terry, what about you?
I can say that the couple of years we took a chance with a company that brought in technology that was new, and you really couldn't go back and research a lot with the technology that's coming in. You can look at other companies, whatever the product that they may be bringing in. We didn't know about it, but it was something that we said, yeah, we could use. Stark County came up and said, yeah, we are going to do this. And bringing in that technology, we were able to develop it ways that are going to work for everybody throughout the country, throughout the world with what's coming aboard. And it doesn't necessarily have to be Carbyne, but just the products that are out there. Be aware of what you're looking into. Get the resources, check it out. Make sure you're getting something that's going to stand up to what it promises to be. Networking. Find out what works for one agency, what doesn't work with this technology that's coming in. You know, I've said it, and Brett's heard me say this. I said, we've been looking at EZNet, text to 911 for how many years? Everything that's out there by any technology company that's putting forward a product is beyond next gen 911. They're already there. We're already there. We're beyond what they were envisioning 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And you can only imagine what it's going to be like in 5 years from now. So that's what I have to say about the technology and what everybody's doing now, what everybody's growing up with. The technology base of our kids that are, 10 years old, 12 years old, that started with cell phones and flip phones are now our communication technicians. So they grew up with that tech, and they kind of expect to have that technology when they come into a room and work, and they're comfortable with it. Let's just provide everybody with the best tool that they can have to accomplish that mission.
Excellent. Now, Julia, from the IT side, kind of the same question, but from the IT side, what is it that, what do you say to those who are looking at getting into, or who might be on the fence of looking at new technology?
Well, first of all, it was worth every penny of it. We implemented this back in August of 2019. We were the first in the state of Ohio to use this particular software, and we were one of the top 10 in the nation to use this, to use Carbyne. So I am very proud of that fact that we were able to be a pioneer, I guess, or a leader in this, I should say. And to me, I'm proud of that we were able to bring this to Stark County. It might not be used all the time, but it's just those few instances in these past couple of years that to me was worth everything. As far as the IT side of it, really simple. It's just a plug-in that you install onto the PCs, put your the IDs that's needed, passwords and things like that from the Carbyne side of it, and you're ready to go. 10-15 minutes a piece for each PC, and you're done.
Excellent. Now, Brett, finally with you, same question, and but also, how can people find out more about the company, and how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so to answer the question, and this is one, Ricardo, that you and I covered on a podcast, our individual podcast too. And so, like I was saying there, the opinion is still the same. Is if you're in a director role or in a leadership role in a PSAP, it is your responsibility to be looking for any option where you can make improvements. Sitting at status quo, at that point, you're only a cancer to the center. Looking for the next advantage or the next piece at that center or to bring to that center is what being the director is about. Obviously, leading and encouraging your people. And when they see that progression, even though we hate change, people like to see that our leaders are being progressive, that our leaders are are setting the bar to the next level to continue instead of being stagnant. So that's kind of my take on, if you're looking at it, just keep in mind your folks are looking also at you to make those decisions on how to raise that bar next. But if you're interested in knowing more about Carbyne, you can always look us up online, www.carbyne911.com, where you can see all the offerings that we have included in our ecosystem, from the plug-in that Julia was referencing to our entire control center or our contact center, Apex, which is our full call handling platform. But to get in touch with me and any questions that I can help answer for you, obviously my thing is customer success. And so the first and foremost is bringing these stories and really helping enable all of our centers who are partnered with us to use it, to even hear about these stories. So, but any questions that I can help answer directly, you can look me up on LinkedIn, Facebook, or simply an email, brett.wren@carbyne911.com. So, and then lastly, Ricardo, if I may, Julia, Terry, Jamie, Cody, thanks so much for being the pioneers in our industry. Thank you for stepping up and really telling the story of your people. And that's another big piece of this is stepping up to champion what your people have done, and really showcasing that. So thank you.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you all for being on. And this has been an excellent episode. And I will be right back here with each and every one of you as we're going into the wrap up of this episode. If you have any comments, questions, or you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches podcast. This episode has been sponsored by InDigital as well as Rapid Deploy and Carbyne, but this has been a Carbyne exclusive episode. And if you're looking for any bonus content, you can check us out and support us. That is going to be patreon.com/WTT podcast. This episode can be seen on Facebook as well as YouTube and LinkedIn. And for the audio version, you can listen 24/7, and that is going to be Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one.